don't have to start from scratch when designing a new crochet piece. Why not be inspired by some of your favorite designers? That's what I did today when I made this Kate Spade inspired bag. Hi there, I'm Ash. I'm obsessed with all kinds of crafting and DIY, but today is all about crocheting. I was recently switching over some of my summer accessories and I came across this old Kate Spade wallet of mine. And as soon as I saw it, I realized it would be really easy to replicate this stripe pattern in yarn. This is a really easy pattern. The entire piece is made with a single crochet, and then I enhanced my design by going over the entire thing with an easy surface stitch. And then I added a zipper top and I sewed the sides together. This stitch is so dense that this bag doesn't even need to be lined. I'm going to walk you through the pattern step by step and how to add the zipper too. But before we get started, have you subscribed to my channel yet? With my background and ongoing access to design, I bring the most stylish DIY tutorials to my channel. Alright, let's get started, but don't forget, I figured this pattern out as I went. And since I'm designing this as I go, you're going to get to see a little bit of the process that goes into designing a project, for example, how wide to make stripes. But you can go ahead and take a screenshot here if you want to have quick and easy access to how wide each of my stripes are in this project. I'm going to start by using this, I love this cotton yarn in Banana as my first stripe in our Kate Spade inspired pouch here. So I'm just going to do a slip stitch. And I'm actually using a size E hook today, which is a lot smaller than I normally use, but I'm going for a really tight stitch on this. And I'm just going to chain until I have the length of my wallet, and that's going to be about 30 chains, but I'm kind of learning this as I go with you today, so we'll see as we get there. I intended to make this wristlet the same size as my wallet originally, but you can see that I made it quite a bit shorter. That surface stitch really shortened up the entire width of my pouch. So if you want to make it the same size as a wallet, I would recommend probably adding another 10 stitches to your chain and doing 40 chains instead of 30. Chain 1 to go back, skip that first chain, single crochet in the next chain, and then keep single crocheting all the way across. Now at the end of my row, I'm going to do another chain to turn, and I'll go back and do another row of single crochet. And I'm going to always go into that very first stitch because I like to keep that nice even edge. And of course, if you want to see more about how I keep a nice clean edge, you can check out that tutorial on my channel as well. So I started with my chain, and then I did my first row, second row, and third row. Since this is the edge of my wallet here, I think I'm going to do just one more row of this yellow. Make sure I get it thick enough. There's my fourth row of yellow, so it matches up really nicely with that first row in my wallet. And now I'm going to switch to my white color. I pretty much always have these giant rolls of Lily's Sugar and Cream white and ivory yarn, so that's what I'm going to use. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a slip stitch with my white yarn, and I'll show you how I'm going to switch colors for the entire wallet. And I already have finished my row here, and I haven't yet done my chain to switch rows. So instead of yarning over for my chain, I'm going to just put my slip stitched white yarn over, and I'm going to pull that through, and that's instead of my chain. Now, what I'm going to do, and this some people say is excessive, but I'm kind of a wimp about being worried that my yarn's going to unravel later, so I always go ahead and cut my yarn right away. And that way I can tie my two ends together just to give it a little bit extra security. And then I'm going to turn, and as I come back, I'm going to go ahead and hold these two ends to my piece so that I crochet around them and weave them right into my project. And that way I don't have to go back later and weave any ends through. So I'll go into that very first stitch, of course, like I always do, which can be a little tricky right at your color change, but grab my yarn and do a single crochet like normal, but you can see I'm weaving these ends in as I do it. So in my next stitch, so there you can see I don't have any loose ends to weave in later, which is really nice, especially when you're doing a lot of color changes like this project. Let's go ahead and finish this row of white, turn, do a second row, turn, and do a third row for sure, and we'll meet back and decide if we switch colors to the coral or do another white. So I did my third row of single crochet with the white, and I think that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my coral yarn now, and this is, I love this cotton yarn in coral. I'm going to go ahead and finish going all the way across this row. My coral row is a little bit thicker like my yellow row, so for this one I'm going to go ahead and do 4 rows of my coral, and then we'll switch back to white. So I've done my 4th row of coral, and it does match up really evenly with my wallet here, but I was thinking about it, and I think I'm going to do one more row of coral anyway, just to make it stick out a little bit more. And I know that when I get up to this taupe color that I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to have to compensate some way to have it be the right width total. So I'm going to just go ahead and do one more row of coral now and then switch to white. I told you we're kind of learning as we go today. So one more. And if you want to see any more tips on how to single crochet or double crochet, or again keep those nice even edges, I have tutorials on all of those on my channel. Go check it out. So it is, you know, a little bit wider than my inspiration piece, but I think that's going to give the effect that I'm looking for a little bit better, so I'm happy with that choice. So we've got 5 rows of coral, and we're ready to switch back to white. If you have a better way of switching colors and securing your crocheted threads, drop me a comment and let me know what those are too, because I'm always interested in learning new tips. Okay, so I'm gonna, again, just crochet around those ends to weave them in. And you can see on my inspiration piece that this white stripe is skinnier than this white stripe. And since I did 3 rows for this one, I'm only going to do 2 rows of white. And it might be a little narrower than this stripe, but I want to make sure my stripe is narrower than this stripe, so to make sure that it is, I'm going to do 2 rows instead of 3, and then we'll switch to green. I finished my 2 rows of white, and I switched over to my green color. And this green color is Lily's Sugar and Cream in Beach Glass. You might remember this color from the tutorial I recently posted that was on how to crochet a woven tartan plaid. It's so easy. If you like plaid, definitely check that out. So I'm just going to keep crocheting with this minty yarn. This is a bigger stripe, and since I'm not doing my taupe, I'm going to just go ahead and do the mint all the way up to where I'm going to start the blue. So this is probably going to be 6 or 7 rows. I'll get started and I'll come back and give you an update. So I've done 5 rows of single crochet with my mint colored yarn here, and that's about the right size for the actual mint stripe in my purse. But again, I don't want to do that taupe colored stripe because I don't have that yarn and it's kind of a boring color anyway. So I'm going to do one more row across, making 6 of my mint, and then I'm going to switch to this skinnier blue stripe. So here I'm working on my blue, and this blue is Hot Blue, and it's from the Lily's Sugar and Cream line. It's one of the other yarns I used in that tartan crocheted plaid pillow, so go check that out. And so I'm just going to keep going along this row. This is a really pretty narrow row, so you know, 2 is actually maybe too much, but I'm probably going to do 2 rows just because I want it to at least stand out a little bit, and then I'll switch to my white. So 2 rows of single crochet in this hot blue, and then we'll switch back to white. I switched over to my white yarn and I did 1 row of single crochet, and I've just chained and turned now to do another row. And this stripe is about the same size as that first one I did, so I'm going to do 3 rows of single crochet for the white stripe. I'll finish this row, go back for my 3rd row, and then we will switch to our pink. Isn't it looking great? I've switched colors and started my row of pink here. This pink is Lily's Sugar and Cream in Rose Pink. It matches really perfectly to this, actually. All of these colors are matching really well. So for this row, it is a pretty thick row to begin with, and I'm again going to skip the taupe. So what I'm going to do is, since this row was 6 and it worked out really nice, I'm going to do 6 rows of this rose pink, and then I'm going to finish in whatever is left for size in my yellow. So that's my 6 rows of rose pink, and I'm ready to switch to yellow. Back to that banana yellow. I love this cotton yarn. And these aren't normally 2 colors I'd probably put next to each other, this banana yellow and rose pink, but actually it looks really nice. Kate Spade knows what she's doing, or Kate Spade's designers know what they're doing, I guess, right? So I finished my 3 rows of my yellow, and it's done. See how nice that looks? Colors match up great. Now I'm going to go back in with my surface stitch to give it that beautiful finished knit look. This is my favorite part. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with this coral, because I think it's going to be a little easier to show you than starting at the very end, but it's the same thing no matter what. So take your yarn and do a slip stitch. Now you want to go ahead and look to see if one side looks better than the other, because you are going to have a top and a bottom once you do the surface stitch. So I think I'm going to call this my top. So then I'll need to insert my hook into this hole. So I'm going to do it right here where these connect. So you can see this is where my white round went into the pink loop. So you can see that hole there. So I'm going to stick my hook into the hole and then grab onto my slip stitch there, and I'm going to pull it up. Okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and into that next stitch put my crochet hook back through, and then I'll grab my yarn from the back side and pull it up. So now I have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm just going to pull this loop I just grabbed through that first loop. Okay? And then I'll go into the next hole. Don't need that tail there. Grab my yarn, pull it through, go into the next hole. So I'm always going into the stitch. I'm always going into where the loops are. You can see it really well where the colors change. And it's making this nice little sort of braided top stitch along my project, which I think looks beautiful and gives it a little bit more of a polished look than a plain single crochet. So as I've come all the way down with my surface stitch, what I'm doing to turn the corner is I'm not going all the way over the edge. I'm just getting to the edge, and then I'm going to just go into the next stitch over. Pull up my yarn, pull it through, and that's basically going to be where I turn, or how I turn. And then I'm in my next row, and I'll just go back into that next stitch just like I was before. And it starts to look really nice. And I'm just cutting off and tying every time I start a new color. And I'll just kind of weave those ends in at the end. And this is what the back side looks like. So it does matter what side you're doing it on, but the back side looks really nice too. It's a nice, dense stitch. This would be great for not letting anything fall through it. So what I'm going to do is finish up. I've got these 3 rows done, and these bottom 2 are almost done. And I've got to do the white, green, blue, and white in the center here, and then I'll be done with my surface stitching and I can show you how I'm going to finish up my bag. Now I'm going to add a zipper. I had this 5-inch long zipper just in my stash of zippers, and first I'm going to just take my piece, hold it up to my hand, and mark approximately the stitch widths along my finger to kind of use it as a guide to pre-drill my holes into my zipper fabric. Of course, you could also just use a ruler and mark it directly onto the bag, but you're going to see that having your stitches perfectly measured out really just doesn't matter that much, so I'm going to get this done quickly. Then I'm going to use a punch I use for working with leather to pre-drill my holes. If you don't have one of these tools, you could use a thicker needle and a very small crochet hook too, but this is a really useful and inexpensive tool to have. And just leaves a nice little hole. And then I can kind of use the marking on my fingers to measure out where I'm going to put my next hole. So about there, I'm just going to double check with my fingers. Okay. I'm just going to try and keep as straight of a line as I can going along this way and punching holes. And then I'm going to use that same surface stitch I was showing you just now as a way to attach this to my bag. So now I've poked holes with my little hole punch along both sides. It's pretty even. I think it's going to be fine when you get it done. And I'm going to do this the same way. I'm going to just start with a slip stitch. Here's the top of my zipper here. So I've inserted my hook through the hole and grabbed onto my yarn just like any other time. And then I'm going to pull it through, put it through the next hole, hook my yarn, pull it up, and then just pull that loop through the first loop, slip stitch there, just like we were doing on the bag. So then I'll go through the next one. Now make sure you don't get it too tight on this because that will kind of gather the zipper, but go through the next hole, pull your yarn up, and I'm just starting to have a nice little surface stitch here. So then when I go ahead and try to attach this, I'll be able to just crochet these stitches together to attach my zipper. I'll show you that when I get there. So I have my surface stitching done all the way around my zipper, and I went on both sides too because I want this to be closed on the edges. And I can attach it to my bag by doing just a regular single crochet again. I want to make sure the outside of my bag that has this really nice surface stitching is out. So it's going to fit in right like this. So I have my crochet hook, my first stitch, and I have my surface stitching facing out. And then I'm going to just put my slip stitch over my hook and pull it through to act as my first chain. Now I'm going to go into that same first stitch like I always do, but I'm also going to go into my first stitch here and grab it. Then I'm going to grab my yarn, pull it through, hook, pull it through. And I'll go into my next stitch, and I'll get the 2 loops on my bag and the 2 loops on my zipper. Hook my yarn through and complete my stitch. And as we do that, it's creating a nice little lip on the edge of our bag to kind of hide that zipper in there. Looks pretty nice when you look at the finished edge, doesn't it? And then I'm just going to finish going all the way around my zipper, and I'm going to sew the edges of my bag shut. Then I just have to add the strap to make this a wristlet, and I'm done. To make the wrist strap, I chained 50 with my yellow yarn, and then I did 2 rows of single crochet in my rose yarn. Don't forget to like this video if you like the tutorial and subscribe to my channel. And if you have subscribed to my channel and you have one too, drop me a comment below so I can come check you out.